Well, kids, are you ready for today? Now, we're supposed to go until, what did you say, 6 p.m. tonight? Was that the deal? I thought that was what we were doing. Well, anyway, I'll be here, maybe not. I'm getting on a plane at about 2:30, so I guess we'll be out by then. I love you guys. How many of you have heard me speak before? Wow, look at that. So does that mean the rest of you have not? How many of you have not heard me speak, or did you just, oh my goodness. Oh, where were you? We missed you. Okay, let me just ask. How many of you have never even heard of me? Go ahead, put your hand up in the air. There you go, hot diggity dog. You know, I love to ask that question because that means there's a future. If there's always somebody out there that hasn't heard me speak, I might get another booking. And I'm very grateful for the bookings that I get, and I've never marketed. You won't see my picture on the cover of magazines unless they choose to put it there. I didn't pay for any advertising or anything like that, and some people get mad at me that I don't do that and get my name out there and sell a lot of stuff, but you know what? I'm here for a different reason, and I have different motives and different goals and all that sort of thing, and one of the things I want to do today is bring some joy back to your life and your practice. Would that be a good thing to do? You know, I believe dentistry is wonderful. I've actually worked in this business for 50 years. Can you believe it? And I don't even look that old. Of course, my hair has a chemical dependency, you know. I love this business, but my mother made me do it. That sweet little lady who named me Joy and claimed that she named me Joy because she was glad to get me after those 3 mean boys. And then I found out from my oldest brother, she didn't name me Joy because she was glad to get me. They were passing in a little town. She was due to have me, and she said, "What will I name it if it's a girl?" And she had a boy's name picked out because she'd already had 3 of those. And the middle one we nicknamed Satan, but that wasn't his real name. But she said, "What will I name it if it's a girl?" And my oldest brother felt the need to share with me when I said they finally quit having kids when they had me and got it right, you know, and they were so glad to get me, they named me Joy. My oldest brother said, "No, Joy, that's not why they named you Joy." I said, "It is too. That's what they told me." He said, "It's not true. I was there when they picked the name." I said, "Well, why did they name me Joy?" He said, "We were driving through Kings Mountain, North Carolina. Mama was trying to pick a name for you, and if you were a girl and you weren't born yet, she looked up, and there was a performing arts center called the Joy Theater." He said, "Joy, you were named after that theater, and it was a porn theater." What a legacy. When I was 15 years old, my mother was a receptionist in a large dental clinic. She would go out front every day with a clipboard in hand and take down the names of the people who were just lined up around the building. There would be people wrapped around the building. It was first come, first served. And so she would number her paper in advance. They would see 75 patients a day. And when she would get to number 75, she'd lean out and look at number 76 and say, "I'm so sorry. We can only see 75 people a day. You're just going to have to come back tomorrow." And she did that day in and day out. And one day she was at home standing in the kitchen. By the way, is it all right with you folks if I speak a little Southern? Because I am. You don't need an interpreter? Just checking. Some places I go, they need an interpreter. I just tell them, divide the syllables by 2 and you got it, you know. We just add on a little bit. My mother was standing in the kitchen. She said, "Joey, we need help." I said, "Who needs help, Mama?" She said, "We do at work." She said, "The girls are going on vacation this summer, and we need somebody to come in and fill in for each one of them." I said, "Mama, I don't know anything about dentistry, except I'd had some. I was an ugly child. Took my parents until I was 12 years old to look at me and say, 'My God, she's ugly. We got to get her fixed.' I had buck teeth. My upper anterior teeth flared out horizontally. I couldn't even begin to wrap my upper lip around my upper teeth to come in contact with the lower lip. I just sucked air all day long." I had curly hair. I still have curly hair. I should have invented that flat iron because I used to iron mine on the ironing board. You know, anybody else do that? Come on, admit it. There you go. I'm telling you, that was why didn't we invent that instrument? I don't know. But my mother said, we need help. I said, Mom, I don't know anything about dentistry except I've had some. They drugged me off to the orthodontist. The orthodontist said I needed to have 4 bicuspids removed. Anybody had that done? Yeah, you had that ortho treatment too. And they took out the 4 bicuspids, and they started rotating my upper anterior teeth back in alignment. And oh man, I started looking better. They were glad to keep me then. They wanted me. And then they felt obligated to fill the space on the lower. They took the lower anterior teeth and started pulling those back, and I got to be ugly again. A nose and a neck. Because my chin went back too, and I still have that neck. I was thinking about a lifetime lift, but I'm not ready yet. But I'm amazed at what we can do in dentistry that's life-changing. That was a pivotal moment in my life. That was a time when my parents cared enough about me so that I wouldn't be ugly all the rest of my life. If they could do simple things like orthodontics and then later orthognathic surgery to bring my jaw back out, and all the wonderful things we can do to help us feel better about ourselves and smile at people and go out to eat and socialize and all the things we do for our patients, it's amazing. So I was kind of sort of thrilled when Mother said, Joy, we need help, and was suggesting I go to work in the dental office. I said, what will I do? She said, we'll train you, we'll teach you. I said, I've never. She said, don't worry about it. The first day I walked in the office, I'll never forget, Dr. E.D. Moore was my employer. He said, Joy, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for coming in. He said, today you're my dental assistant. I said, I can't. I've never. He said, you can, and today you will. I love that man. I wish he was still living. He would be if his wife hadn't killed him. They think that's what happened. They didn't prove it because he was like 90. He's still practicing in the practice he had, and he just died suddenly. And he loved going to work. He would walk in the office skipping every day. He just loved being there. He loved his patients. He would run from patient to patient. That's why he insisted on at least 75. And he just loved these patients, and he did great work, and I loved working with him because every day he would point his little finger at me and say, you can do this. Like the first day there, he said, Joe, I want to teach you how to mix alginate. How many of you know how to mix alginate? All right, now, you'll remember the first one you mixed. He grabbed that little bowl, grabbed the alginate, put it in the bowl, grabbed the water, put it in the bowl, grabbed the spatula and said, watch this. He started mixing. He said, I'm going to mix smooth like butter. He said, I'm going to do this first one, you're going to do the next one. He was unbelievable. I didn't know that before noon I would mix 149 mixes of alginate. My first job in dentistry was working in a denture mill. We saw 75 patients a day for full sets of dentures. We would take impressions in the morning, send the impressions off after we made a mush bite, to approximate vertical dimension. Ooh, that was fun too. I liked it. He would say to the patient after we put this wad of wax in their mouth, bite, 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 stop! He was an expert at approximating vertical dimension. I loved working for that guy. The first day, he said, you can do this. And what a beginning that was for me in my career that's gone all over the place doing amazing things that, thank God, somebody said I could do because I had my doubts. Have you ever been there? Someone asks you to do something, you think, I can't. Well, that doctor said you can, which really paid off because the next doctor I worked for said, you can't. Where's my assistant, he would say. And all he would let an assistant do was suck, spit, and blow air. That's all, just sit there, and suck, spit, and blow air, that's it. One day, assistant couldn't jump in the chair, and I did, and he said, where's my assistant? You're just a receptionist. That's what I was in that office. I have been infuriated about the fact that where I go, I ask people, what do you do? I'm just a receptionist. I'm just an assistant. I get so tired of that just. How many of justas are in here? I want to see you here. Go ahead, admit it. Okay, you didn't raise your hand because you know I don't like it. You know I don't like it because I just know what you're capable of. Because if I can do it, quite frankly, anybody can. I did some studying on leadership, and I found out that leaders are not normally born that way. Something happens to them through their life where they become a leader, and it's a choice. It's not a destiny. It's a choice. And you have a choice, for example, to be here, and I'm so glad you are. Oh, I felt a little mini pearl coming on. You know, but I'm glad you're here. This program, this day is all about you. We're celebrating you, and I really want to thank OMSNashville for making this possible. This thing has grown. Have you noticed? How many of you were here the first time I was here and we did this, you know, to celebrate hygienists? Now, it's amazing that you've got this many hygienists in Nashville area. Oh, some of you are not hygienists, though, are you? Yeah, the phone call was made. Somebody said, can I come? And they're just not going to say no. They let you come. And so we've got doctors in here. Where are the doctors? Let me see your hand. Come on, there you go. I'm glad you're here, too. What about assistants? Let me see the assistants. Wow, I got a ton of assistants. I'm so glad you're here. What about business team? Got business team in here, too? Come on, let me see you. Come on, get your hands up if you can. I know you're tired making those calls for scheduling, and I'm glad you're here. We're going to have a great day. This is a program all about you, and we're going to talk about some fun things. And so let me grab this little controller, and one of the things we're going to talk about for sure is, let's see if we can get this on right here. I'll move this forward. One of the things we're going to talk about for sure is, why are you here? Have any of you figured that out? Now, I'm not just talking about this seminar in Nashville over here at the Marriott next to the airport. I'm not talking just about why you're here today. But some of you probably already asked that question of yourself. Why are we doing this? Why are we going to this? I was in Redding, California, and a doctor was shoving a notepad into the face of the lady that had come with him. It turns out his assistant. He was shoving this notepad in her face, and he said, "Here, take notes. You need this." Someone made her come to the event. And I hope that's not the case for you. I hope you came today because you want to be here, because I sure did want to be here. And I hope to give you some things that you can use to really bring the joy back to your practice in your life. One of those questions that I'd like answered is, why are you here? Why do we do what we do? Why did you go to work in dentistry? Why did you decide to study hygiene? Why did you, decide to be an assistant? Was it just a fluke? You answered an ad? What was the deal? Have you figured out why you were here? Because one of the things that I love is this quote from Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. Have any of you figured that one out? Why are you here? When I got on that plane in Charlotte, North Carolina, I was questioning why I was coming because that happened this week. Can you believe that? I got on the plane, everybody was asking the captain, did you check the blades on the engine? Every time I get on a plane, if I have seen the captain walking around the bottom of the plane from the window as I look out, looking at the plane, watching luggage being loaded, if I see the captain walking around the perimeter of the airplane, looking up at the bolts, kicking the tires on the plane, because I'm on planes, this week I'm on 4 different planes. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different planes? 5 different planes. And when I see the captain kicking the tires and looking at the bolts, when I get on the plane, I say, I saw you, as I stick my head in the cabin where the captain's sitting. I saw you. Captain and co-pilot, usually jerk around and look at me like, what? What'd you see? What'd you see? And I tell them, I saw you kicking the tires. I saw you checking the bolts. Thank you. I'm on a lot of planes every week, and I sure do appreciate that you still are checking. Are you still checking? Why are you here? I bet little Tammy, it's Tammy Jo Schultz, I bet she was suddenly realizing why she was there. After all that military work that she did, she was in the military 30 years ago. She was a jet pilot. That was her before. And while she was a jet pilot, paving the way for women to fly jets in the military, all the military jet pilots are coming out of the woodwork, giving her credit for, creating the access to them flying in the military. I bet when she was doing that, it was pretty scary at times. But what happened this week when all of a sudden something happened that had never happened to her before, and she was successful at landing that plane? What went through her mind? I wonder if she ever wondered, over the 30 years she's worked with Southwest Airlines, why am I here? Well, I think it was answered this week. This week she had one of those, what I call a pivotal moment in her life. And let me stop right there, because since this program is all about you, I want you to start thinking about you. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, reach into your beautiful green bag and grab that handout. Sweet Katie printed this on a little heavier stock since you are writing on your lap so you don't poke pins through it. But do me a favor and grab this handout because I'm one of those persons that likes to give you as much as I possibly can give you. I will have a bunch of stuff up here on the screen, but an opportunity for you to fill in any blanks that are on this page on the front or the back. This is here for you. There is a pen in your bag also, and there's a pad of paper there that you can bring out if you're a note taker. I'm a note taker. Typically when I go to a meeting, people will, well, there are usually 3 different groups of people at meetings that I speak for. First of all, you have the learners. They're the ones who show up early, sit down front. They don't want anything to distract them from learning. They tell me if I can just get one idea that I can use in my life or practice, and it's been worth the trip. And I'm all for that. I mean, I'll go for the one thing, to learn one thing. But with this many experts in the room, I bet we can learn something. I bet we can share information. I used to think I knew it all until they let me out. And I found out that there's someone who knows a better word to use, a better method, a better system, a better way of doing things. If I'll just get to know them and ask them questions, find out who they are and where they came from and what's your story, tell me about that. Oh, you do that? Wow, how do you do that? If I can ask questions, I might just learn something. So I am a learner. I learned a word down in Atlanta, Georgia from a lady. I was talking about getting paid. I have a 12-step program for getting paid. So that we can recover this non-payment process. A lot of offices will tell a patient, oh, your portion is this, and we'll fantasize about the rest. And insurance prevents patients from receiving care and really wants to limit the access to care. It's not covered, and people believe that. And so I teach that program. And a lady came up to me, and she said, I've got a word you can use in making financial arrangements. I said, give it to me. She said the word allow, A-L-L-O-W. I said, well, how do you use that word? Use it in a sentence. She said, we allow you to pay this at the time of the visit. I love that word. So I look for words. I'm a learner. I want to learn words. I met a 70-year-old office manager out in Los Gatos, California. She said, I got a word for you. She said, I don't like the word phases. Even our computer systems let you do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. She said, I don't like the word phases. I said, well, what word do you like? What do you use instead? She said, I use the word progressive. I said, how? Use that in a sentence. I don't know what you mean. She said, she tells the patients, if they can't do it all right now, she says, well, we'll put together a progressive treatment plan for you so you can get this done. I love that. I also love that you can. That's transformed my conversations with patients. You can get this done. I like that a whole lot better than what I hear a lot of people saying, and I used to say too. Well, you can do this maybe, possibly, hopefully, if your insurance approves it. We'll have to find out from them, and then we'll wait about 3 months for them to send us a denial, and then we'll try to get in touch with you. We'll only try once because if you don't want it, we don't want to bother you. So we won't follow up with you very much. Instead of saying all that, so you can get this done. Lifting a patient's chin and lifting their hopes so that they can move forward into a future that could be life-changing, like my care was life-changing for me. When you look at your handout there, I'd like you to think about you and the pivotal moments first in your life. What happened in your life that significantly changed where you are today? That it significantly changed where you are and who you are today. What are those pivotal moments? Today I want to really think about how did those pivotal moments influence you, because this is all about you today. The other thing is how did those pivotal moments ultimately influence patients? Since this is a dental group and we work in the field of dentistry, how does it affect you where you are, with whom you are in your practice as far as patients are concerned? And how did those pivotal moments in your life influence others? For example, your family or your coworkers or all the people around you. I want you to think about you and your life. In fact, how many of you have ever sat down and actually mapped out the course of your life? You know, what was the circumstance of your birth? I heard a comedian last night on TV when I turned it on as I was trying to wind down my brain as I got into the hotel room. And I heard a comedian say, you know, I was born, I sure would like to meet my daddy. And here he was in his 40s, almost 50 years old. He said, I sure would like to meet my daddy. I've never had a conversation with my father. I don't even know who he is. And I just had all this sadness well up because I loved my father, and I was fortunate enough to know my father and to grow up with my father. Had some challenges in relationship with my father, especially when I was a teenager. However, you know, we get through that and survive that. But it was a pivotal thing for me to be born in the family I was born in. For my husband, he said, I wish I had been adopted. Because he was born into a family that was abusive. They were alcoholics. They were just not nice. He spent most of his childhood hiding from people who would hurt him. And he was just a cute little, sweet little mean boy, he said, because of them. And he would hide. What a birth. What an experience. And then you have your childhood. You grow up. Maybe you're around 5 years old. Did something happen in your life at age 5 that was transforming to you? Not me, not at 5, but at 6, I was kidnapped. You know, they found me, by the way. Don't get anybody get upset and go look, and I'm here. They found me. But what did that do to my mother? What did they experience? And my brother, who was supposed to be walking me home and turned around because he forgot a book at school just 2 blocks away. And in that little tiny segment of time, that little pivotal moment, I was taken. Wow. I never thought about what it did to my parents or what they thought or felt or how they may have grieved or how they may have become overprotective of me after that. You know, and I didn't understand why are they, we never discussed it, you know, but it was a pivotal moment. What happens? I recommend that you sit down and you start mapping out your life so that you can understand where you come from and why you act like you do. Wouldn't it be kind of nice to see this map for the people we work with? I'm not suggesting that you do this and share it with each other, but I'm suggesting that we need to understand people are who they are, and there's a reason for it. You know, so when I come back to the question, why are you here? Everything that happens in our lives leads us to a place that can be magical even when tragic. It can be amazing what we can do with the circumstances of life that lead us to be where we are today, doing what we never planned on, potentially, because I never had any idea I'd be doing this. And it all started with that doctor saying, you can, and today you will. So think about the pivotal moments in your life and map that out for yourself. You know, what pivotal means basically is very important, potentially a turning point or turning points, because I've had several pivotal moments in my life where I was going in this direction, wanted to go in another direction, and instead of going in the direction I wanted to, was turned, sometimes not under my control, into another direction that turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened. Did any of you have that happen in your life? You know, something happened. And all of a sudden you were turning in a direction you didn't want to go, but then you went anyway because there was no other choice at the moment, and everything changed, and it got better. I mean, it happens. I hear stories all the time. Turning points, life-changing. Pivotal moments in your life provide clarity because we stop and we say, whoa, what was that all about? What was that? You know, what just happened? And then all of a sudden, you know, it puts us in a position to help others. You don't need to raise your hand, but I want you to think about you. Some of you have experienced tragedy. Some of you are experiencing a challenge even today, but you're here, and I appreciate you being here. Hopefully I'm here because you're here. And I didn't know that. You were going to be here. Oh, don't let me get too deep and, you know, woo, out there kind of thing. But let me tell you, I know that I pray every day, Lord, let me meet a stranger. Let me meet a stranger. Sit that funny-looking person next to me, because they've got a story I need to hear. Lord, the person nobody else wants to sit next to because they smell and we can tell it. I want them to sit next to me because I know they've got a story. I want to hear their story. You know, what's your name? What's your story? That's what I want to know, because I know that where you are just happens to be today next to me. And because of that, something could happen like it has for me many times, meeting strangers on airplanes or people at seminars, that has been magical and transformational in my life. And then it qualifies you. When you go through things, one of the things I've discovered is when people find out, you hear your story or whatever, and they're going through it, all of a sudden they can ask you for help. It qualifies you to help people. I know there are people in this room who have had cancer. I'll never forget hearing the story about two assistants who were talking to each other. I assisted with her last time. I don't think I should have to assist with her this time. You should have to assist with her this time. Well, I don't think it's fair that I've got this woman in my schedule 2 times in a row, and I have to assist with the same old mean, nasty woman 2 times in a row. Have you ever heard that kind of conversation in your office? Or the doctor will say, who put this woman in my schedule? You know. Happens, been there. I'll never forget these two assistants were arguing, and then the hygienist stepped up and said, well, I've got a broken appointment. That's pivotal, isn't it? Can mess up your whole day, right? Mess up your schedule, and and it's like, okay, production's down because this person chose not to come. We confirmed the appointment. We sent out the text. They replied they would be here, and they're not here, or God forbid they're late. And then they show up 20 minutes later and still expect you to see them. Things happen in your practice. Well, this time, these two assistants were arguing. The hygienist knew her patient was not coming. She said, hey, I used to be an assistant. You guys chill out. I'll go assist. It'll be fun for me. I don't have a patient in the chair, and we just found out for sure she's not coming. I'll go assist. And the hygienist goes in to assist with that patient, and sure enough, she's mean and nasty, the patient is. How many of you have mean and nasty patients? You could name them. HIPAA won't let us today, but I could name them. Oh, yeah, I hope they moved to Nashville because I didn't want to see them again. John said he was going to pay, and then he walks right up to the front. When everything was done, I was working at the front desk. I had made financial arrangements. We had it in writing. I confirmed that when it was due. He knew what to bring, and he walks right up front. After he got his teeth in his mouth, when the cement sets up, it's kind of tough to collect. You know what I'm saying? When it's bonded, it's bonded. I mean, you can't pull that. Well, I guess we could grind it off, but at any rate, don't usually do that. John walks right up front, looks at me with a big smile, shows me his beautiful, finished product. His teeth were gorgeous. And I said, oh, John, aren't you glad you did this? He said, oh, I sure am. I said, well, let me get you a receipt for the balance that's due today. And he did the pat down thing. He said, Joy, I must have left it on the desk. Well, his office was just 3 blocks away, so I suggested he go get it. That's a lot of money. It was half of his fee, and he didn't bring it. I said, your office is just 3 blocks away. Do you mind running down and getting it? It's due today. I'll ride with you if you want me to. Because I knew what was going to happen. You know what happens when patients don't pay? Well, typically, sometimes the doctor's kind of standing behind the wall, The doctor's, he or she's standing back there. Is she paying? You know the deal. Go tell her that's due. Hey, she's walking out. We don't have it. And I knew what was going to happen. I wanted John to pay if I had to go get it. He said, Joy, I'd go get it right now and let you go with me, but I got an appointment. I got to go. And I'd see John at the grocery store. He'd push his buggy around the other corner. I'd see him at church. Mm-hmm. I had some blessed assurance for him, I'm telling you that. And so patients make you mad. They sometimes are mean, and sure enough, this woman was mean when the hygienist walked in. She just snapped at her. She was mad. The hygienist simply reached out, touched the lady on the shoulder gently, not grabbing her, or slapping her, or anything like that, but just gently touched her on the shoulder and said, are you okay? And the woman started crying. It's like, whoa. Now, some people would say, I don't want to open that door. You just calm down. We'll numb you up. You'll be all right, I don't want, some people don't want to go down that path with a patient and deal with the emotion, but I teach risk management. I have seen patients treated because they have an appointment, and then they became a risk because we didn't know what was going on in their life physically or emotionally, and then they became a risk patient, and that put us in harm's way as well as putting the patient in harm's way. If something is not right, something is not right. Stop. Take a nanosecond to find out, are you okay? This patient said, I just was diagnosed with cancer. Well, guess what? She had been diagnosed with cancer before those two assistants assisted with her. But they just said, sit down, the doctor's going to be right in, you know, and just shut her up and did the treatment and didn't touch her at all. Why are you here, to suck, spit, and blow air? Are you just a hygienist cleaning teeth? Do you think that's why patients come to see you? Don't you know that they can clean their own teeth? A patient told me that. I can clean my own teeth. I don't need that appointment. And then you have to tell them, oh, we go way beyond where you can go. We're superheroes. Let me get my cape. I mean, we can do much more than you can do. We can see beyond where you can see. I mean, hey, you're not just a hygienist cleaning teeth. Do you think that's why patients come to see you? I don't think so. There's a magic that happens when you sit down next to a patient. There's a connection that can occur or not. You know, your spirit is with you, good or bad. And when you walk in that room and have contact with patients, magic can happen or not. In just the moment that you're with them, a new patient or old, a pivotal moment can occur and their life can be transformed. Behaviorally, attitudinally, spiritually, physically, it can all be transformed, and you have that privilege to be there with them. This hygienist reaching out, just touching on her shoulders, saying, are you okay? And the patient breaking down in tears. The hygienist then pulling up the chair closer to the patient, sitting next to her, allowing the patient to share about her diagnosis that they did not have documented in the medical history. I tell people, maybe you ought to be verifying medical histories like every visit. How many of you have patients on drugs? Hope you didn't put them there. You know, medications are changing, all the stuff that they do, their health, people are stressed out. How many of you have patients come in with hypertension? You know, they're all stressed out. You know, she's pulled up a chair, sat next to the patient, talked to the patient about her cancer because the hygienist was a cancer survivor. And then all of a sudden, there was a glue. Pivotal moment was gelled, and the hygienist got to create magic to help her because she was an expert, because she had been through something herself. Folks, these pivotal moments, in my opinion, are important, so I want to talk about it. You know, in your handout, I've got a nice little circle for us to talk about and identify pivotal moments in your practice. Let me just tell you, I've got little arrows with that little graphic that I've got in the middle of the screen there. Those little arrows go from one to the next to the next to the next, but they're not in any particular order. No, I'm not starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All of these pivotal moments in a practice matter, and in any sequence that they occur, they matter. In fact, they are all important. But I just wanted to share with you the arrows are just the direction I'm going to go as far as filling out the little visual for you. These are what I call points of influence. And I'd love to ask you, how do you influence people and patients and all those around you? How do you influence them? Because you're influencing, whether you're talking, sitting down with them, running to hide, you are having an influence when you are with people or when you choose not to be there, especially if they need you. You are influencing. That first little pivotal moment, let's talk about it, marketing. How on earth do you market? If you're a hygienist, let's talk about you because this program was focused originally for hygienists. But the rest of you, think about you. How do you market? Marketing is anything we do to move a potential customer, client, patient to buy our product or service. Marketing is the message. Marketing is what we say or do that moves them. Do you market, or does someone else in your office, are they responsible for placing ads or marketing the practice? Reality is that's advertising. I'm talking about marketing, which really moves people to want to buy your product or service or be there. Marketing is something we do to our employees too, for them, to move them to want to show up. We'll talk more about that a little later. But the reality is marketing is anything we do that moves people. If you're a hygienist, how do you market? Let me introduce you to Margaret. Margaret, I don't have her picture. You could be Margaret. Margaret was a hygienist. I think one of the programs that I talked about, lost patient recovery, just to emphasize a little thing that Margaret did. I'll share it with you again because she blew me away. Talk about superheroes in dentistry. Margaret is one. I love Margaret. Margaret was a new hygienist. How many of you are a new hygienist? Brand new. I want to see your hand. Are you really? Okay, wait. Congratulations. Welcome. We're glad. New hygienist. Are you excited? Are you still excited? How long have you been a hygienist? In May, you're like brand new. Yee-haw! Hot diggity dog. Is there another hygienist in the office you work? Yeah. There is another one? A couple of them? Okay, well, what's your name, dear? Brandy. Hey, everybody, welcome Brandy. Woo! Brandy, new hygienist. Woo! I love new hygienists. New assistants, new business team members. I like the new people. You know why? They don't have a made-up mind. For one thing, not that the old folks do, but the more I get older, more set in my ways I kind of become. You know, I have my opinion about how things are, and I'm an authority on certain things. But these new people, they come in the office, and they've already got joy until we suck it right out of them. You can just see, just from hearing the tone of Brandy's voice, that she's excited. Woo, she's proud. I'm new here. Well, Margaret, it was just like that, Brandy. So it could be you. I could change this name to Brandy. It could be you. Margaret came into the office, and the old hygienist who had been there for 30 years said to Margaret, Margaret, these are my patients. You can't have any of my patients. Well, Margaret knew that if you're going to be a success, it doesn't depend on somebody else, it depends on you. And so Margaret just asked her, well, if the patients haven't been in the last 3 years, you know, I'm happy to call them and get them back in. Can I see those patients? The other hygienist said, well, you can call them, but they won't see you. They'll see me because they're my patients. But you can call them if you want to, but they're not your patients. They're my patients. Margaret immediately figured out she was going to have to get her own patients because there weren't any patients that this old hygienist would let her see. I don't know if any of you have been in that position before, but it happens. It's just kind of sad when I watch it and I think, man, aren't there plenty to see? I love going in an office and they tell me we've got too many to call. When I'm asking them about their recall system and who follows up and who's responsible, oh, we've got too many to call. We don't have anyone designated. And then when I evaluate the active patients in the practice, I find out that at least 50% don't have an appointment for anything, not even hygiene. I'd say, I want that job. Hey, Brandy, if you don't have anything to do because they won't let you see their patients, Brandy, you just get on the phone, call some folks. You'll have a practice like that. But don't tell them you're doing it because they'll want those patients. You know, I'm just saying. Well, Margaret, she was not normal. How many of you know people who are not normal? Normal is when you do what everybody else is doing. You just follow the leader and just do what they do, say what they say. You just kind of get sclerosed in their activity and you become like them. I used to want to be like everybody else. And then somebody told me, sing your song in the key of B natural. Be yourself and you'll be terrific. You know, and it's a whole lot better it's easier to be me than to be somebody else. It was stressing me out to act like Zig Ziglar when he would speak. And, you know, different speakers that I admired. I met Art Linkletter. I wanted to be like him and tell all kinds of stories. And I wanted to be like Paul Harvey and tell the rest of the story. I wanted to be like all these people, plus all those speakers in dentistry. I'm glad I'm not normal. Normal is average, like everybody else. Margaret was not normal at all. She knew she had to get her own patients. So the first thing she did was she went out and got patients like she did for the boards. You remember how you got your patients for the boards in hygiene? You went out and you asked everybody, let me see your teeth. Let me see if you're qualified. I need to meet these certain requirements for the board. Come with me. And you hit all your family members. You took all of them to the boards. You hit strangers on the street walking in. Are you going to the dental clinic? Oh, are you scheduled to have hygiene done? Oh, let me check you, see if I can have you as a patient. You know, you could be my patient. I could do, you know, for the board. Well, Margaret hit up everybody she knew. She talked to her family. She tried to get people that she knew to come into that office she was working in. And it worked, but then she did the most brilliant thing I've ever seen anybody ever do as a hygienist to grow practice. She took the doctor's business cards and she simply flipped them over and wrote on the back, "Ask for Margaret." Now, you know why she had to use the doctor's business cards, because she wasn't going to make it there. No way. She was going to be sabotaged by that other hygienist who didn't want anybody seeing those patients that were her patients. She wasn't going to make it there. The doctor had been convinced by the old hygienist, I don't think she's going to make it. She's inexperienced. She doesn't know how to take care of patients the way I take care of patients. She was being sabotaged. She knew she wasn't going to make it unless she got some patients. So they weren't going to have her cards printed. No way. She wasn't going to make it. So she got her own cards. Well, she took the doctor's. Flipped them over, wrote on the back, "Ask for Margaret." She brought her own patients into the office, and I saw the doctor that she worked for. I've known him for many, many years. I saw him just this past year, and I asked him, how many patients did Margaret bring into the office because she took your cards, turned them over, and wrote "Ask for Margaret"? How many patients did Margaret bring in the office? He said, oh, funny you should ask that, because we've just run the stats. We've run the numbers, because Margaret transformed our practice by what she did with that little. I remember consulting with her practice. I said, you ought to get Margaret some cards printed. I think she's going to make it here. And she snapped around and said, no, those cards, the doctor's cards, are working for me. This was marketing. So you can hand them a card and it doesn't move them. But you hand them a card that says, "Ask for Margaret." That's personal. That makes a difference, and that's what she did. That's personal. This was brilliant marketing, and Margaret would personally handwrite these little cards and hand to strangers. I was in the office one day, and she came in with 3 people. She told 2 of them, "Have a seat, I'll be with you as quickly as I can." She took 1 back. I found out she got 2 at a gas station, I think it was. She was filling up at lunch. She got another one at like a 7-Eleven. She just would talk to strangers everywhere she went. She would talk to strangers. I'm a hygienist. I work in the greatest dental office. When's the last time you saw a dentist? Oh, I don't have a dentist. Oh, you need to come see us. In fact, I've got an opening. Why don't you come go with me now? She would bring people in, spur of the moment, and they didn't mind waiting for her. Why? Because she made it personal. She was not normal. I'm a hygienist. I'm very special. I have a pedestal they put me on every day in the office. And you can come if you can get an appointment. I'm very booked up. Margaret didn't talk like that. She would say to patients, "We'll make time for you." And sometimes they had to wait, but it was their time, and they would see Margaret. I loved Margaret. In fact, the doctor said the first year she was there, she brought in 800 new patients in just 1 year. Some of you are saying, you can't. She didn't know that. She didn't know she couldn't, so she did. And they just added up. Everywhere she went, she spoke to strangers. I love doing that. I learned things. I was on one flight flying from the West Coast to the East Coast, and I was in coach. And you meet much more interesting people sometimes in coach. I get upgraded because of all my miles. I got upgraded on one of my segments tonight, but I don't know who's going to be up there. They probably won't even talk to me. And how am I going to learn anything if I can't ask questions and have somebody talk to me? My speaker buddies tell me, why don't you just put on headphones or tell them you sell insurance and they won't bother you. You don't have to talk. I love to learn from strangers, and so I'm sitting in coach, and the guy gets on. He didn't even have the aisle seat. He hadn't figured it out. I like these aisle seats, And on the airplane, it's kind of my exit plan. I'm not going out that window, no offense, and bless her heart. I feel so bad for that lady, but I bet she didn't know that her reason for being there was to save so many lives, too, by blocking the way. Isn't that a weird graphic? Because I'm not normal the way I think about things. But I believe our time is appointed, and when it's time to go, we're going to go. And if it's out the window, I'll go. But not, if I can sit on the aisle seat and avoid it, then I might have another day. I don't know. But I love talking to strangers. This guy sat next to me, had red hair, had a red plaid, like flannel shirt. And then we were boarding on the West Coast and flying to the East Coast. And, I think it was Las Vegas. I was getting on the plane, actually, kind of out west. And so I met this guy. I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Vegas." He said, "This is my home." I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm plumbing business." I said, "Really? You do the plumbing? You have the plumbing company? What do you do?" He said, "Both." He said, "I own a plumbing company." He said, "I do, and I also have crews that go in and do the plumbing." He said, I own the company. I said, "Las Vegas, plumbing. Are you a multimillionaire?" I'm thinking they got a lot of pipes in Vegas, and they're still building. I said, "Are you a multimillionaire?" He laughed like crazy. He said, "I am." He said, "I am." I said, "Well, I want to be one of those when I grow up, so let's talk. I want to find out how you did it. What were you thinking to get into the plumbing?" And so we had this great little conversation about why he did what he did and what path it took. But then he told me a pivotal moment. He said, "Joy," he said, "I had a bunch of my buddies from college." He was originally from Minnesota. He said, "A bunch of my buddies from college came down and they visited me. I took them out to the Strip. That's one part of Vegas, and then we've got the other part of Vegas." He said, "They wanted to go out to the Strip, and we went up and down the Strip, and they enjoyed themselves. And they were back at my house, and they were getting ready to leave. We were going to get them to the airport." And he said, "They were standing in my office at my home, and one of them looked at me and said, 'Red,'" that was his name, Red. Had red hair. Anyway, "Red, you sure are lucky. Look at what all you've done. Look at what you've achieved. Look at this. This is amazing. You sure are lucky." Red said, "Oh, no. The guys left. He said, "Joy, I took a little 3x5 card, and I wrote on that 3x5 card, 'The harder I work, the luckier I get.'" That little moment made me think about, it's tough getting on these planes. They could blow up. It's tough traveling, going through TSA. I used to hate TSA, thinking I got to take shoes off, got to take stuff off, out, and everything. Then I kind of got into it. You want to pat me down, hit me, and this little nerve right here at the back. Work on that a little bit. Go ahead. I would watch people going through security, cussing and fussing. One man said to me, "Do I have to take everything off when I, come through? Do they make you take everything off?" I said, "No, sir. No, sir. They don't make me take everything off, and thank God I didn't see you take everything off." "Oh, sir. With TSA pre-check, I can leave my shoes on unless some of my fancy shoes that I wear because I want to, and I don't care if they alarm. I'm going to wear them anyway, some of those." But I said, "No, sir, they don't have me take everything off." He said, "They make me take everything off every time." I said, "Sir, have you looked in the mirror lately?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You look pretty dang scary." I'm just saying. You look like a terrorist. You might want to cut down on that tanning bed and shave your beard. I'm just saying. Because I flew the day after 9/11. I know what people are thinking. And we don't mean to judge, but we do. I don't like it, but I've done it. I said, "Sir, you might want to just tone it down." I was standing at the gate in Kansas City, and the guy in front of me was cussing out the gate agent. He said, "I'm going to miss my connection." We were on a ground stop, meaning that we were not flying because where we were going, we couldn't land. So they were holding us where we were. We were on a ground stop. So this guy in front of me was cussing at the agent, saying, "I'm going to miss my connection." And, we were just stopped there because the weather where we were going was dangerous to land in, And so I was kind of glad we were on a ground stop. But I was checking in. I walked up to the gate. The guy cussing at the agent, stormed off to go find a supervisor. I walked up to the counter. It was my turn next. And I said, "Sir, are you him?" He said, "Who?" I said, "God." I said, "I've been wanting to meet you, didn't know it'd be today, but today's just fine." I said, "That man was blaming you for the weather, so I figure you must be him, you must be God." The gate agent laughed like crazy. He said, "Give me your ticket," and upgraded me to first class. There are pivotal moments that happen every day in your life. Whatever you do, don't miss them. Don't miss them. Be magical like someone like Margaret. You know, you are a marketing magnanimo or whatever. I don't even know if that's a word, but it sounds like it should be, shouldn't it? You're amazing the way you move people, the way you move your kids to do what you want them to do without screaming, yelling like you're tempted to do. You know, the way you move your patients to accept treatment, you know, because they see the value that far outweighs the price. And they focus on the value because there's a sparkle in your eye that moves them to say yes, because it is the right thing to do. It could change their life. Their life might never be the same. How many of you have nightmares about your teeth falling out? Anybody besides me? Look at that. Ooh, I should do a study on that. People in dentistry dream about their teeth falling out. Now, for years, it was number 8 for me. It was spinning in my dreams. And number 9 is now spinning too. What's with that? But guess what? Your patients have that nightmare too. They do. And they walk into our office, and I watch us the way we communicate with them. Hygienists will say to the patient, you know, I'm going to take this little dull instrument, and I'm going to measure the distance between the tooth and the gum tissue down to the level of the bone. And it will tickle a little bit. This is not a sharp instrument. It's just going to tickle a little bit. And I'm going to call out some numbers, and I'd like you to listen to the numbers. You know, if you hear me call out 2s and 3s, that's good. You know, that's well within normal limits. You know, it's what I've got in my mouth, and 2s and 3s. And if you hear me call out numbers like 4, 5, begin to pay attention, please. And we're going to measure all the way around both arches in your mouth. And if you hear me call out any 6s or 7s, you know, just be aware that's where we need to help you. But we can do that. Okay. Are you ready? Here we go. 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 6. 7, 7, 8, you dirtbag cheese breath. Loser! Now, you don't say those words, but they get the message. And they're sitting there, they're so excited because they're new here too. I'm here. Well, my friend said she loves this office, and now I'm here. Oh, I'm so excited about being here. And you call her a loser. You know, you don't say those words, but she gets the message. I tell docs all the time, you know, these patients come in and their chin is up. But by the time we finish with them, their chin's hitting their chest. And the worst case you've ever seen. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. No wonder they say, can't you do something cheaper? You know, my mama had a partial. My mama's mama had a partial. My mama's mama's had a partial. Why pay more when I could have less for less? I mean, that's what they come into because they just want to get out of there. Is it because they can't afford it or because they hate being there? Marketing is anything you do that moves them to want to stay. If you have lost patients, it's because of us. It's not because of them. Because they would be there if they really wanted to. My friend Bobby's a Southern comedian. She was so funny. She said, Joy, you still work for dentists? I said, I do, Bobby. She said, well, I just got me a new dentist. I said, Bobby, did your other dentist die? She said, no, Joy, I got me a new dentist. I've been going to the other dentist for 25 years, but I got a new one. I said, why would you change? Did you move, Bobby? She said, no, Joy. I got me a new one because I got a coupon. I said, what was the coupon for, Bobby? She said, 20% off. I said, 20% off of what? She said, I don't know, but I'm getting 20% off. She said, my other dentist didn't give me nothing. In fact, they'd just send me a little card every year, and I'd have to pick up the phone and make my own appointment at their office. You'd think they'd care enough about me to go ahead and schedule me. I guess they didn't try because it's hard to try to schedule when they're there, isn't it? If you don't care, they're not going to schedule. And guess what? That's a marketing message. We'll just call you. We'll just send you a text. You know, my own dentist. My own dentist. God indoctrinated into this technology, you know, and sending texts. Well, I'm technologically, you know, gifted. I got my phone and all this stuff, you know, I can get texts. And since I travel all the time, I can get messages. My own dentist put the system in so that reminders go out, you know, and birthday messages and reminders about your due for your regular checkup if you don't pre-appoint. You know, it's so funny how I play with doctors. I'll say, I don't know where I'm going to be in 6 months. Have you ever had patients say that? You know what you need to say right back? Just say, I do. You're going to be right here. And here's why. If they say, I don't know what I'll be doing in 6 months. I don't either. Let's risk it together. Take a chance with me. You know? Come to the dance. I'm going to be here. We'll figure out a time. And then bite your tongue. Don't teach them to cancel. I hear us make the dumbest mistakes. I've worked in dentistry for 50 years, folks, and I watch us screw up all the time. You know, we'll say, well, if that time's not convenient, just give us a call. Or we put little messages on the recall card or on the appointment card that say 24-hour notice is required. Guess what that teaches them? Look at your watch. Set yourself an alert, so if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. You can call them and tell them you're not coming. We're teaching patients to cancel. Why do we do that? Say, we're looking forward to seeing you. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and reserve an appointment for you. Say that instead of, do you want to? Do you want me to go ahead and get that next appointment? Because I really don't care. I get paid the same thing whether you come back or not. We'll just send you a text. You can call us. How about that? Because I'm lazy. My own dentist sent me a text, said you're due. And the next month they sent me another text, said I'm inactive. I called them up. I said, I still love you. Just wondering if you know you don't love me. They didn't know. They didn't know that the message after the first notice, the next message from the company they had contracted with was that you were inactive unless you called right away. It's like they were getting rid of people on purpose. You don't want to do that. The number one challenge in dentistry today is patient retention, keeping patients coming back. I'm an expert on keeping patients because they used to drive me nuts not coming back. I would think, what's wrong with them? Don't they care about their teeth? I'd even say that on the phone or in letters I would write. Don't you care about your teeth? Guess what? They don't. Unless you can see them. Then they might care a little bit, but some people I've seen don't care at all. Even if they don't look good, they don't care. Some people don't. Don't you care? Don't you care? That didn't work, you know. Well, we're going to send you a card. You give us a call. And then if they didn't come back, it's like, I don't want to bug them. The doctors would say, I'm going on vacation. You know this little speech coming up. Going on vacation. While I'm gone, why don't you go through some of these records? Get on that computer. Find some people. Bring them back. We look at the doctors and say, okay, doctor, have a good time. I know you will. Come back with a tan, you scumbag. They walk out of the office and we just look at each other and say, you want to call them? I don't want to call them. If they wanted to come back, they'd have been here. I don't want to bother them. This is such a waste of time. I mean, we're going to spend hours and hours and hours. This is such a waste of time. I don't want to call them. You want to call them? Okay, I'll call one. You want to come back? Didn't think so. Years ago, we'd get the boxes. Thank God we had those little date stickers on the chart so we could figure out how to quickly get rid of people. Pull them by the date, not by the patient, not by the person. Not by the person we were just casually putting in a box and making inactive. Now, you know what? We've got an easy button. All we have to do is push the button and poof, they're archived. They're gone. They're history. So easy. And there are so many doctors out there looking to get those patients. Sometimes they'll send a coupon. The prospective patient doesn't even know the value of it, doesn't even know why they need to go there, except they were enticed by this coupon. They don't know that other person, but they will leave a practice they've been loyal to, faithful to, because we lost our joy in recognizing that we're the one with sparkle in our eye and anticipation, looking forward to seeing them. We're the one that's the marketing connection. We're the one that moves them to stay with our practice, come back to our practice, because we say, let's go ahead while we're waiting on the doctor to get off the phone. Let's go ahead and reserve that next appointment for you. Instead of, do you want to? Do you want to? Be someone like Margaret. She was magical. Do something that moves people to come back to your office, because it could just be a pivotal moment for the practice. I know it was for this office that happens to be in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a pivotal moment, that marketing that you can do. The next thing, let's look at another little pivotal moment, a point of influence, is with patients, quality patients. Quality patients. Now, you and I both know that we get what we get. They walk in the door, you know. They call the office, they walk in the door, we get what we get. What kind of patients do you want? What kind of patients do you get? What kind of influence do you have on the patients that you get, and how do you get more? Let's just talk about that a little bit. First of all, I got a great question to ask because I'm talking about that sparkle in your eye. You know, when patients walk in the door, do you have great expectations or guarded skepticism? I was a skeptic for many, many years. Patients would walk in the door, I'd sum them up in about 2 seconds. You know why? I am woman. We can do it. We've got perception. We have skills that these men in the room don't even know what we're talking about, but we can look at somebody and we can read them. We know whether they're going to, receive treatment. We can look at what they have on, and we can tell whether they can afford it or not. We can look at how they walk. We can look at how they sit down in the reception room, what they pick up to read. We can figure this stuff out. If we're up front and we see them drive in, we know based on the car they're driving whether they're going to do it or not, right? I mean, we are women. We can read these things. How many of you have been surprised that you might be wrong? You know, when patients walk through the door, do you have great expectations or guarded skepticism? Usually after you see them and maybe judge them based on the way they look. I had a man walk into the office, he had on plaid shirt, plaid pants, and they were not the same plaid. The guy was 30 minutes late for his appointment, and his appointment was the last one of the day. So that meant we were going to work over again. You know, he was there for an implant dentistry evaluation. That's a field that I work in most of the time. That's why some of you may not have heard me or met me before, because that's where I work and speak most of the time. At any rate, he walked in, and I looked at him. I said, no way, this guy can't afford our kind of care. I went back and I found the doctor. I said, your 4 o'clock appointment just walked in, and there's no way he can afford your kind of treatment. The doctor looked at me and said, Joey, who are you to judge? I grabbed the doctor by the arm, drug him out to the business office, said, look over there. There he sits in the corner. He's soiling your furniture. There's no way. The doctor had elevated himself to a higher stance. He said, Joy, I'll do my part, you do yours. His part was to do the clinical evaluation, review the findings, create a lifetime plan of good dental health, put together the treatment plan. Bring the treatment plan to me to check it, because I found out from auditing recently that doctors leave off about $1,500 worth of stuff accidentally, and then they want us to go in and say, we were so busy that day you first came in, and we put your treatment plan together. And so we left off a crown, and so there's going to be another fee. How would you like to pay for this? That's not a good thing to have to go through. I told doctors years ago, if you leave something off and it's your fault because you didn't take 5 minutes to check your plan, if you leave it off, you eat it. I used to hope you could deduct the loss on your tax return, but my husband's a CPA and says, no, you can't do that. You just have to eat it. See, I thought it would be a good deduction, just call it continuing education. You're going to learn how to treatment plan better, or you're going to keep losing money. You know what I'm saying? But I do like having a rule. Doc, if you leave it off, you explain it. You explain it. You be the one to go in there if you really want to make that money back. An oral surgeon hired me. He said, Joy, my number one referring doctor is going to quit referring to me because we had a little conflict with a patient. He said, I want to hire you to come out and work with my number one referring doctor. We do big cases together, and this one incident has made him say, I'm not doing any more. That's it, I'm done. I said, what happened? He said, we did a big case involving implants. He did, restorative, full mouth restorative. We had implants and full mouth restorative. He said he did the restorative. He does beautiful work. He said it was a big, beautiful case. He said, but then the laboratory sent him a bill after the fact for $600 extra that he was not aware of, extra cost for extra stuff that they did. He said, so my referring doctor sent the bill to the patient to pay. He explained it. These were some extra additional costs that we were not aware of. We just received the bill from the laboratory. We're asking you only to pay the cost of the materials, and that's what the patient got. Well, how do you think the patient liked receiving that little notice? She ranted and raved and said, for what I paid, I thought everything was included. I can't believe that you actually are sending me a bill for $600 more. I gave you enough already. She was furious. Do you think she told anybody else in the community about it? Oh, yeah. I mean, it was hitting the country club. It was hitting the neighborhoods. It was all over the place. So this oral surgeon called me. He said, I need your help. I want to fly you out, send you over there, have you work with him to straighten out this mess because he's mad, he's upset, he's ready to, quit doing these types of cases. I went to see him. I walked in the office, and, he knew why I was coming. I was going to help him with the risk management associated with this because I don't know if you know this, but when patients get mad, they get even. I don't know if you know that. But at any rate, I was there to help him with managing the risk associated with what had happened because the number one reason why dentists are sued is because of misunderstandings associated with treatment and the fees for treatment. You said you were doing this, and this is what I actually got, and blah, 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 back and forth. They create confusion, and that's the number one reason why dentists are sued. So I was there to sort out the misunderstandings. I walked in, the doctor said, I can't believe you're here today because she's here today. She's back there in the back. She's mad. She's still ranting and raving. I said, tell me your version of the story. He told me, he said, she came in, we treated her. I said, what's the results of the treatment? Beautiful. The dentistry is gorgeous. It's some of my best work. He said, I'm very happy with it. I can't believe that she would get so upset. She can afford the $600, but she just got mad that we sent her a bill after the fact. I said, well, get your checkbook. He said, why? I said, you're going to write a $600 check. And you can't deduct it off your tax return. I was hoping you could for continuing education. He said, it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. The older I get, the better I am at telling the doctor, bet me. You couldn't call the laboratory to ask if there were any additional costs, if there was any, different fee than your normal fees for what you're doing here. You couldn't communicate with them. You couldn't have this all answered before the fact instead of after the fact. You couldn't do that. He said, you really think I should give her $600 back? I said, absolutely. I said, write the check. You're going to go in there, and you're going to get down on your knees, and you're going to grovel. You're going to beg for forgiveness. And then you're going to thank her for helping you learn that patients don't like this, and they don't like these surprises. People want to make sure that, if they're going to be great patients in your practice, you better not surprise them in a negative way. I went into an office to consult. The doctor averaged seeing 15 patients a day. Out of the 15, 12 treatment plans were changed chair side. And the fee never went down. The fee always went up. Doctors, if you're in the habit of doing that, break that habit. Don't schedule an appointment for patients for treatment unless you know that's what you're going to do. Granted, if all of a sudden they broke the tooth and something else has to be done, stop and talk to them before you treat them. But what this doctor was doing, he was doing what he wanted to do, then sending the patient to the front desk for the receptionist to break the news. And he was not just losing patients, he was losing entire families as a result of that action. Folks, you want great patients? Be a great doctor. Now, you can analyze and figure out what kind of patients you would like to have. What type of dentistry? What about their manageability? What about their age? What about their attitude? I've always taught that you get what you get. It's what you do with what you get that makes a difference. And once you get a few, then you can recognize we shouldn't take these people for granted. You recognize someone walks in and says, you're the doc, I'm not, whatever you recommend, that's what I want to do. And they trust you. A patient who trusts you is kind of a neat person to have in the office. You recognize that if they make it easy for you to do the work, for example, they pay you, that's kind of a nice thing too, because then that makes it easy for you to do charity work. You don't have to worry about, oh gosh, I can't afford to do it. I can do charity work because I choose to do charity work. But I've got some patients who actually come in and they're compliant with, keeping appointments and doing the type of dentistry that really needs to be done. They trust us. They're nice. They show up early. They bring gifts. The age group is just where we want to work. When I started working in the field of implant dentistry, the average age was between 50 and 60. 10 years went by, and all of a sudden, the average age of the patients that we were seeing was 60 to 70. 10 years went by, and the average age of the people we were seeing was 70 to 80. Now I've got patients all over the country that I know now that are 100 years old and had their implant done. So what age group of patients do you like to treat? One doctor I worked with wasn't called to treat kids. We just knew it was not his calling. We'd put the kids in the chair. He'd walk in and he'd say, "You're so cute. I'd love to take you home, put you in a cage with broken glass and snakes." They would laugh at him. "Oh, you're so funny." And he really meant it, though. We knew he meant it when he'd ask us to load up the cold anesthetic. He really didn't want them to come back. What a pivotal moment he was becoming for these patients, and we suddenly realized maybe we need to move them maybe out of the office. Maybe he shouldn't be seeing kids. You know, what type of patients do you love to see in your office? Don't take them for granted. I heard one of my clients, Dr. Mike Picos, an oral surgeon down in Florida, would say to patients, every time he would do surgery for a patient, he would reconnect with them before they left, and he'd say, "Everything went great today. You're a wonderful patient. You know, nothing would make me happier than have a practice full of patients like you. If you have any friends as nice as you, send them to me." I saw him in the hall. I said, "Okay, I heard you say that same thing. If you have any friends as nice as you, send them to me. I heard you say that same thing 3 times in a row to patients who happen to be nice." He said, "Oh, yeah, that's who I say it to." I said, "Where did you learn that?" He said, "Years ago, I attended a continuing education session, and the doctor who was presenting said, when a patient's nice, I never take that for granted. When they act right, when they're compliant, when they're, do what we ask them to do, like pay, all that sort of thing." He said, "I never take that for granted. I don't just skim over it and say, 'Next.'" He said, "I'll stop, make eye contact, and say, 'If you have any friends as nice as you, send them to me.'" Dr. Picos said, "I started doing that out of habit, and then all of a sudden, what I'd written in my notes to say moved to my head, and I said it. Then it moved to my heart, and I meant it. And my practice has grown as a result." You know, what kind of patients do you love to see? Don't take them for granted. When they walk in, say thank you. Get in the habit of saying thank you. Thank you are 2 of the most powerful words we can use. The other powerful word we can use is the patient's name. By the way, when you're talking to patients, if you say their name, it moves them to pay attention. Adults have about an 8-second attention span. So if you say their name, they'll listen. You know, I don't know what Brandy's doing now, but I bet she's looking at me. All you have to do is say a name, and people will pay attention. And so that's what, this doctor realized that, if I engage the patient, if I thank them for being there, if I say their name, if I say, I'd love to have a practice full of patients just like you. If you have any friends as nice as you, send them to me. And patients do. Little things make a huge difference. What type of patients do you like, do you enjoy? The next pivotal moment, let's look at that one. It's a quality team. I used to call us staff. We're the staff. And then I was speaking in Richardson, Texas, and a doctor said to me, "You don't want to call them staff. Don't you know a staph is an infection?" He was back at the back of the room. Doctor on the other side of the room jumped up and said, "Well, that's what I got working for me." I watched, and he was right. In fact, at lunch, everybody went to lunch, and the doctor that said that's what I've got working to me didn't go. He sent his staff to lunch, and he stayed behind, and he was pacing back and forth. I noticed as I was getting organized up front that he was pacing back and forth, and it's like, what's going on? I went back, and I spoke to him. I said, "Are you not going to lunch?" He said, "I don't want to." I sensed that something is not right. I said, "Why not? Didn't you have staff here?" He said, "Yeah, I didn't want to go with him." I said, "Why not? What's going on? What can I do for you?" He said, "I got so excited all morning. You were talking about things that we can do. I know we can do this. But every time you would suggest something and I'd write it down, they'd see me write it down. And then they'd lean forward and say, 'You don't want us to do that, do you?' I was just talking about stuff like customer service. You know how when someone walks in the door, you want to make sure you climb on the chair, go over the counter and kiss them on the lips, stuff like that. You guys do that. Just make it immediately and overwhelmingly obvious that they're in the right place. Otherwise, they'll just think you're normal old dental office. I was talking about, don't engage them with, 'Hi, how are you? Have a seat, we'll be right with you.' Everybody says that. Why don't say, 'Oh, you're here?' Get excited about them being, 'I talked to you on the phone. I think we went to high school together.' Say anything but, 'Hi, how are you? Have a seat, we'll be right with you.' One hygienist said to me, 'I put my mask on, put my gloves on, then I go get them.' She said, 'There's no touch. We're so separated from our patients.' She said, it made me realize, thinking about how do we approach people, we can take our mask off, spin it around to the back, or, just meet them without the powder on your hands. Do whatever you can to make it immediately and overwhelmingly obvious they're in the right place, not just the same place like where they go everywhere else. What kind of magic can you create? The team can do this. My favorite thing, well, that doctor, by the way, when I said, what are you doing? He said, I got all excited, but they just leaned forward and said, you don't want me to do that, do you? I said, and you pay them to make you miserable? He kind of got a little sparkle in his eye when I said that. And then I stopped him and I said, if you haven't had the conversation, if they don't share your why for doing all this, if they don't even know why they're just there to suck, spit, and blow air, and they don't know what a difference it might make, if they don't understand the why, then the how-to is going to be impossible for the rest of their career. And you will be miserable. You're going to be one of those suicide preventions that I end up doing. I don't want to do any more of those. I'd rather take a cruise. How many of you would rather do that? Yeah. So, hey, if they don't know, he said, oh, they know. I cry every day. And I thought, oh, wow. Wow. We let these things happen and they get worse, and we don't stop and become a team. My favorite definition of a team is not in your handout. I'll put it up here on the screen. I love this definition. A team is a group of people who are inextricably woven into the fabric of each other's success. If you've got a team like that, nothing is too hard, nothing's impossible. You can work together. You'll be high-fiving in the hall. Patients will be glad to see you, whether you're in the front or in the back. You won't be griping about each other, doing the wrong thing and getting things messed up like in the schedule. There won't be that invisible line between the clinic and the front office where neither is supposed to cross the line, and there aren't these arguments. You're a team, a group of people inextricably woven into the fabric of each other's success. And what difference does that make? Day before yesterday, I went to have my eyes checked. It had been 2 years since my last appointment because I didn't want to go there. I like Steve, my doctor. I've known him for years in the basketball community in Charlotte. I know him because he's a doctor for the team and all this stuff, but I like Steve. I know him that way, but his staff is lousy, and I don't know how to bring myself to tell him. It's very sensitive because he's a friend, but I think I'm going to need to do an intervention. I walked in. Neither receptionist made eye contact with me. They looked down the entire time I was standing there. They never greeted me. Never. And there was like an opening, this big long desk. They didn't even acknowledge that I walked in. And I was like the second person of the day to walk in. And they were already ingrained or involved in whatever was on their desk. I wanted to look over and see. What are they doing? So then they had one of these sign-in sheets because they don't want to think who might be walking in. They've got a schedule. They don't want to think. They don't want to recognize a patient who's been a patient of that practice for 30 years. I really am troubled with having to tell him. But I walked in. Neither one of them greeted me. And then I signed in and told them I was there. I just spoke and told them I was there to see, my doctor. And they said, well, have a seat. And I waited. And it was kind of interesting because I was like the second person to walk in, and they had 4 treatment rooms. I knew that because I've been there before. And I just waited and waited. Another 20 minutes went by. No one ever said. I thought maybe Steve's not here yet, but I know him, and I knew he was there. It's like nobody notices stuff that goes on there. And then shouted from the desk came one of the receptionists saying, do you have your contacts in? I said, I only wear one, but as a matter of fact, I don't have it in. I wore my glasses over here because I wanted him to be able to, just look at my eyes in the raw. And they said, well, good, okay. And then all of a sudden, the 2 receptionists started arguing about something. And I just like, this is embarrassing. Apparently, one of them had done something wrong, and I got to hear all about it. It was about insurance, and I got to hear all about it. So finally, someone came to the door and took me back. I had to ask her what her name was. She never told me, and she had me follow her. She had me sit in a chair, and I had my purse in my hand, and it's like, where am I going to put this? There was no place to put it. And I just held it in my arms for a moment, and she said, you really need this test. It's $40. Your insurance won't pay for it. Do you still want it? This is my friend Steve's practice, and she's telling me this. You know what she could have done? She could have told me why it might matter, because they could see if I had diabetes, cancer, and all these other things by taking this picture of the eye, which I thought was pretty impressive when Steve explained it to me. But she said, do you want it? It costs $40. The insurance won't cover it. That was my indoctrination to the test. And I said, well, if doctor recommends it, I want to have it done. So they did it. I got to see the picture later. And my eyes perfect. The veins look great. I don't have cancer. I don't have glaucoma. I don't have any of these things that they could see from this picture that they took. My retina's fine, cornea's fine, everything's fine. You know, it's amazing. What could we do that could make a difference if we work together and each one of us pay attention when somebody's not, you know, happy to see people, not greeting people with great expectations? Maybe we cover for them because obviously they must be having a bad day. Because normally in our practice, we kind of go over the top, over the counter to greet people, kiss them on the lips, so that we have a practice in the future. Because people want your patients. Wouldn't that be different? I love working with a great team, an incredible team. In fact, here's something that I learned about teams. An average team with a plan is better than a superior team with no plan. An average team with a plan is better than a superior team with no plan. What kind of team do you have? I can highlight team members I've had the privilege of working with, many I've hired for offices all over the country. One team member that comes out in my mind is a gal by the name of Suzette. Suzette's a super duper hero. I just had dinner with Suzette recently. We were having a little reunion. We might end up working together again in some endeavors because Suzette is amazing. I hired Suzette, but I was told not to hire Suzette. I checked her references, and I learned don't always believe the references. I hired Suzette after calling, and they said, oh, she won't show up. She was an average student. She, you know, got great grades, but she just didn't want to show up to class. She acted like she was bored all the time. Guess what? She was bored. They were lousy teachers. They were. Suzette showed up for her interview. She's sitting on the edge of her seat. I asked her if she knew anything about implant dentistry. She leaned forward. She wanted to know. She said, do you do much of this? I said, they're doing surgery right now. She jumped up. Can I go watch? I mean, she wanted to be there in the room. I made sure we had permission from the patient for observers because patients have a right to privacy. I made sure that it was okay with the doctor to have her scrub up, come in. Next thing I know, I said to Suzette, because I'd been told not to hire her, and I didn't intend to hire her because I believed the references at that point in my life. And I said to Suzette, well, go in. I'll let you go in there for about 15 minutes, and I'll come back to get you, and we'll finish the interview. In other words, that meant I'll tell you that we'll call you if we're interested because I'm not going to hire you because your references were bad. I mean, that's what I was thinking. I went back 15 minutes later. She had kicked two of the nurses out. She was in the mouth with the doctor. I had to hire her. Suzette was not normal. She leaned into a challenge. Suzette was amazing. She would keep an eye on the sneaky doctor for me. She was a clinical team member, and she would watch out for the doctor. He would do things like, hey, we've got the time. You want to go ahead and do this? And she knew that the business team didn't have financial arrangements with the patient. She would say, wait, I think that's the wrong anesthetic. I'll be right back. And she would run out of the room, go to the equipment room, and shut off the compressor. That's a team member, inextricably woven into the fabric of each other's success. She would come back into the room and she'd say, the compressor has shut down again. Interpreted meaning, you stupid idiot doctor, we don't do treatment without having financial arrangements. You're creating problems for the business team. Don't do anything. But she didn't say that. She said, the compressor has shut down again. And the doctor knew exactly. It's kind of like the look Mama gave you, you know. The doctor knew. Oh, well, let's get that fixed. Why don't you get Joy back here to make financial arrangements with Mrs. Patient? You know, she knew, he knew, they knew. You know, Joy needed to talk to the patient about fees, financial arrangements. And that was facilitated because Suzette kept an eye on the sneaky doctor. But here's my favorite quality of a great team member. Suzette was a team maker. hero builder, hero maker, team maker. She was amazing. I went to her one day. She and I worked together full-time for about 10 years. I went to her one day. I said, Suzette, I do not get you. I said, we hire because we're growing, and we've got new people coming in here, and before I know it, you have trained them, and they are better than you at the task that you asked them to do. You've trained them, and they are better than you. Don't you feel threatened? Don't you feel, I mean, most people don't, they just kind of hold back a little bit. I'm going to show you how to do this, but I'm not going to show you my secrets. You know, how to do this and do it perfect. I'm not going to show you what the doctor really likes. I'm going to give you the instrument the doctor's okay with, but I don't want to show you the secret and the little, you know, secret sauce kind of. I'm not going to show you that. Most people hold back. I said, but you, Suzette, when you train them, they're in there, and the doctor is just so impressed. They're better than you. Why would you do that, Suzette? Don't you feel threatened? Why would you do that? She said, she looked at me and she said, so they can do it. I said, what do you mean? She said, I've got other stuff I need to do. And if I'm the only one that can do it, then they're holding me back. I need them to do it and do it better so the doctor will love them, and they can go in there and they can do it, and I can go do this. Amazing, amazing characteristic. She was a team maker. She got people and she got them up to speed fast. I found a great little book in my father's bookcase after my father passed away. He had a little tiny bookcase. It was only 2 shelves high, and my father loved books, and so I was surprised that he had a little tiny bookcase, only 2 shelves high, and this book happened to be on there. I was glad it was still on there because I got to get it. My father loved to read books, but then he would read it and he would give it away. And I thought that was really cool, but I'm glad I got this one. Maybe he had gotten it more recently, I don't know. But the book was written by William Danforth. William Danforth wrote this book in 1931, or at least that's when they compiled it. William Danforth is the guy who started Purina Dog Chow. Remember that company, Purina Dog Chow? And every Monday morning, he would go in to meet with his team, and he would challenge them. And he would send them a little letter. Every Monday, they would get a little letter from Mr. Danforth that would encourage them and challenge them and tell them what they could do to be successful at their task, at their career. And I got this little tiny book, and I was so blown away by some of the things that I found in this book that I want to share one in particular, especially following up on what I just shared with you about Suzette. There's a story in this book that he tells about Henry Ford. Henry Ford, of course, the big Ford maker, the originator of that. He shares about Henry Ford and what Henry Ford did. And let me just share this with you. And then we're not due for a break quite yet. We'll just keep going. Are you okay? Everybody okay? We'll take a break in about 45 minutes. Is that all right? Keep going. All right, Henry Ford bought a glass factory. The output was limited because at just one point, everything depended upon the skill of one man. It's like that main hygienist, that main assistant. Everything depended on the skill of just one man. He had become an expert after years of service. Sensing the difficulty, Mr. Ford called the old man into his office. From now on, you're not going to make any more glass, he said to the man. The old man staggered. He had been faithful. He felt insulted. I can't believe it. What did I do wrong? Why don't you want me to do this? He just was hit to the core of his heart. You know, he'd been doing this for years. And then Mr. Ford said, no, you are not going to make any more glass. You're going to pick out a few of the brightest you can find in the plant, and you're going to teach them to make glass. From now on, you are going to make men. That was, of course, written way back in 1931. I guess to be politically correct, what would you say? The old man hesitated, doubting his ability. He picked a few, and taught them, increasing the output tenfold, and today has responsibility of larger usefulness, making men. I love that. What are you doing? How are you training? How are you teaching? What are you doing with the people that you work with to build the team, to build the character of the individuals you work with? Think about that in your role. It's a point of influence. The next point that we'll talk about is quality of care. Quality of care. Now, I learned a significant thing from one doctor years ago, probably 40 years ago, and it has stuck with me all this time. And I believe it was a pivotal point in my opinion about what kind of quality care we should do. What kind of dentistry should we treatment plan? What should we do for our patients? What should we work with the insurance? Should we, let them do what their insurance pays for and then skip over to next year and let them? I had all these questions and I didn't know what to think. And then I noticed that doctors would put together 3 treatment plans. It'd be treatment plan number 1, treatment plan number 2, and treatment plan number 3. I would watch doctors as they would sit down and present this care to patients, and it was all good treatment. It was all good. And they would sit down and they would say to the patient, the best thing I can recommend is that you do this and this and this and this. And sometimes the patients would just fold their arms in front of their chest. And I've studied sales and marketing and found out that many times, what does this mean when they fold their arms in front of their chest? What does that mean? They're blocking you. They're saying no. And so I thought that's what the patients meant by, not proceeding with that treatment. And I would notice that the doctor, when a patient would fold their arms in front of the chest, the doctor would immediately jump to treatment plan number 2 and say to the patient, if this is not appropriate for you, what we can do is this for you. And the fee was always less than the first treatment plan. And then sometimes patients would say, ooh, but I bet that's still going to cost me. Which apparently, that's what happens. And so then the doctor would jump to treatment plan number 3. And I watched this cycle go on and on and on. When I started consulting, I was down in Nacogdoches, Texas, and a dental assistant was so funny. She told me, oh, our doctor will just keep talking until the patient accepts a swing lock partial. I didn't at that time know what a swing lock partial was. Apparently there are attachments on the cuspids and the posterior segment of the partial kind of swings back and locks in. And they showed me what one was. And I said, what do you mean the doctor keeps talking until the patient accepts a swing lock partial? They said to me, if the doctor would just shut up, patients would do better care. And I started evaluating that. What do you mean? And I had been to the lectures where we were told that you are required to inform patients about alternative care. So then I struggled with all that. We're supposed to do it, but now patients are not doing the quality best of care. They're moving on to alternative care, sometimes, just what insurance will pay for. And they've got all this necessary care that needs to be done they never get to. And many times they're focused on the price. So I started questioning, what are we doing? How are we influencing patients with what we do? I started asking, and I started noticing. When patients do this in a dental office, often it does not mean that they're blocking you. It often means that they're cold. Woo, they've got that air running in here. It feels pretty good to me, but some of you might be chilly. So don't jump to treatment plan number 2 just because a patient does this. They're just cold. Another thing that I learned from patients, and by the way, Socrates said, listen to your patients and they'll tell you what to do. Another thing I learned was that when patients say, ooh, I bet that's still going to cost me, does not mean they don't have the money. I thought that's what it meant, but it didn't mean that at all. It sometimes meant it was just an editorial comment. They made the statement. I'm sure you've heard that, ooh, I bet that's going to cost me. And if you just don't say anything because you don't know what to say, some patients came back to me and would say, ooh, I sure am glad I got it. Or I don't have it, but Mama does. Or I'll have it after we get back from the cruise. Or after the 3rd one graduates. People have the money for the things they want to buy. So then why do we do treatment plan number 1, treatment plan number 2, treatment plan number 3, and we keep on going until we sell them something? It's because we don't believe in the quality of our care. We don't believe that patients deserve to receive what we have to offer. Because patients have taught me they want the best. It's us who might take them down a different path. We assume by looking at them they can't afford the best of care, so we don't even treatment plan it. We assume by listening to them when they say, we're retired now on a fixed income. Have you heard that one? So we'll just have to do what we can do to get by. I asked one woman, what's that mean? You're retired on a fixed income. What's a fixed income? What's that mean? Because I'm going to get one of those one day. I just want to know what it is. She said, oh, honey, we have $3 million in savings. We try our best to live off the interest. Bless her heart. You know, what's a lot of money to me might not be a lot of money to the patient, but we judge these people and we move them to alternative care. I ask doctors, I say, if you're going to put 3 treatment plans together, do me a favor, whatever you do, put the same price at the bottom of each column. They say, but it's not the same price. I said, pick one and put the same one at the bottom of each column. Because if you sell your dentistry based on price, you will always fight price wars. If you sell your dentistry based on value that far outweighs the price, patients will seek out value. They will find a way to pay for it. People will pay you for the value that they receive. So pick a price. Put it at the bottom of the column so they're not focused on the price. You go out to a nice restaurant like I did here in Nashville last night, and sometimes it's tempting to look at the price, you know, and make your decision based on price instead of based on value. Sometimes that's the case. One treatment coordinator in an office I worked with recently put 2 treatment plans, 2 options on a piece of paper. She had descriptions. At the top was the best option, and she had typed out a beautiful description of the treatment and what it included. Not a list of, like on a menu for patients to pick from the menu, but it was just a description of the treatment. The second option was typed out, and what that included, which was some removable, I believe, and the first was non-removable. The second had some removable prosthetics. And over to the right, there were 2 prices. On the page, 2 prices. And the top one was, of course, higher. The next one was lower. And I asked the coordinator, what draws the attention of the patient's eyes when they sit down and you're talking to them about these treatment plans? She said, oh, their eyes always go to the price. And what are they most likely to do as a result of looking at the price? She said, choose the cheaper one. I said, it's human nature. It's what people do. You know, they're always looking for a bargain, but they don't see the difference in the value. I asked this treatment plan coordinator, I said, what if you took the price off this sheet? She said, they'll ask me then. I said, so? Let them ask. At least don't let them focus on the price and make the decision based on the price. When they ask, before you tell them, say, if money wasn't an issue, if the price was not, you know, the issue here, which one of these treatment plans would you prefer? You know, the doctor recommended this as you know, the best option when the doctor was talking to you, and this is just an alternative. But if the money wasn't the issue, which one would you prefer? And patients will most often say, boy, if there's any way I could do that, I'd want to do that. Then say to them, let me help you do that. We can work with patients. We can walk you through this. Let's put together a progressive treatment plan for you so you can get this done. You know, move patients forward into quality care, and more patients will receive quality care. Then the next thing you know, you've got a practice full of patients who are doing that. The real pivotal moment for me came from Dr. L.D. Pankey. Dr. Pankey had a philosophy, basically, about quality of care. He said there should be no second or third choice, only work that is one's best. Who are you cheating when you give them second best? You're cheating yourself because you're able to do better than that. You can do better work than we offer patients on a daily basis. So why do we cheat them? I know why. It's because of the screamers, right? How many of you have had screamers when you quote the fees? Screamers? It's how much? Doesn't take too many screamers, so all of a sudden you adjust what you offer, you adjust what you charge, you adjust what you do. Screamers. I personally like screamers. First of all, if people are not screaming when we quote the fee, maybe we're not charging enough. How many of you wish you'd charged at least one patient more? And you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, but if too many people are screaming when you quote the fees, maybe they don't see the value that should far outweigh the price. If they don't know why this is better than that, then any price is too high. I was in a California practice, 5 doctors, 9 hygienists. And they had a communication issue because patients were getting mad, especially couples who came in for dentistry at the same time for their hygiene visits. The female would go in and have a prophy, periodic evaluation and a prophy. The male would go in, have a periodic evaluation and perio maintenance. And they would walk out and pay very different fees. The man was paying more for the perio maintenance. The woman was paying, a lower fee for the pro fee and periodic evaluation. It was less. There was a difference in the fees. Then the couples would go home and they would compare their notes. What did they do for you? Wanting to know what was different about what they had done. And there was no perceived difference except in the price. And so they focused on the price with no perceived difference because what they got done, they thought was exactly the same that the other one got done. So if you're going to charge a higher price, I hope you're able to communicate the value that far outweighs the price. Why do you do these sort of things? Why is it important for the patient to receive this care? What might the patient lose in the event they don't proceed with the recommended necessary care? How can you help them do the right thing tomorrow instead of simply paying a cheaper price today? I found out that when patients come in, today might not be a good day. Tomorrow might be better. And I would rather they do the right thing at the right time than just sell them something cheaper today. So think about that as you evaluate the quality of care that you provide. Now, based on what I'm seeing, it's 10 o'clock, and it looks like several of you need a break right now. Is my boss here? Where is Katie? Is it okay to take the break now? I know we're scheduled at 10:30. Are things ready? Do you mind checking? That would be great. All right, we'll do one more and take a break. How about that idea? That be all right? Let's move forward. Here's another point of influence. Another point. Here it comes. Your systems. Your systems. How are your systems and organization working in your practice? How's that working for you? Systems. What's your system for scheduling? What's your system for your recall system? What are your systems for following up on patients? What are your systems for if a patient comes in, has an evaluation, and then says, "Ooh, I've got to think about this, I'll call back"? What's a system in place to make sure you stay in touch with them? My uncle taught me to fish. He said, you never want the line to go slack. Never let that line go slack. What's your system for making sure you stay in touch? If patients don't receive necessary care and if they don't get the treatment done, they could experience loss. What's your system for warning them about the risk of loss they might experience? Do you have a system for that? What's your system for bringing people to the office and training them? Do you have a schedule for training? What kind of system do you have for making sure people know what's going on? What's your inventory system like? I walked in one office and I said, who handles the inventory? Well, everybody does. You run out of something, somebody picks up the phone and orders it, or go online and order it. We just, whoever notices we need it, we just get it done. I said, has anybody audited what you're paying, what you're getting, what you were told you would pay, what you actually pay? Anybody check? Is there any system for checks and balances? I said, doctor goes to a meeting. How many of you have doctors that go to a meeting and they buy everything? Because they had a meeting special, and then all this stuff starts coming in and they ask you to figure out what it is and how to use it and so on and so forth. And do you have a system to make sure when the doctor goes and does that you get the things that the doctor ordered, checking the invoices, making sure you got the meeting special, does it all match up? I find so much money in offices because nobody's really responsible for that system of inventory. I told a group, I said, who wants to volunteer and take this on? To really see if there's any loss that's occurring we were unaware of, that we're paying too much for something. If you bought 3, you could get it for less than if you bought 1, and we need 3 anyway, buy 3 instead of 2, and then 2 next time, paying retail instead of wholesale. Anybody want to take this on? And we coached a little bit, and one lady said, I'll take it on. I said, well, see what you can find, and next time we get together, I want a report. What'd you find? Next time we got together, I said, did you find anything? She said, did I find anything? She said, we have a sales rep for one of the major supply companies that actually delivers our supplies and then takes a new order. So this lady comes in, brings us the stuff we ordered, and then takes a new order, and then brings that stuff that we ordered and takes a new order. She said, I found one little line item I had never noticed on every single video that we have. You can talk to me. That'll be great. Thank you for that. He said 10:15 will work. That's what he said. So don't sit there and watch your watch. I was just watching your bodies. You were squirming a little bit. Y'all must have had some Starbucks and good coffee. Anyway. So I said, okay, next time I come back, I want to give me a little report. She said, I found a little line item we hadn't even noticed. She said every time we would order, there was a little line item there for $7.50, a handling fee. And she said, so I called up our rep. Before she came back the next time, I said, do you mind bringing supplies to us every time you bring supplies to us? And get a new order. Every time you come in our office, you're getting a new order, bringing us supplies. Do you mind doing that? She said, oh, God, no, of course I don't mind. I'm glad to do it. And then the gal that was checking this said, well, why are we being charged $7.50 handling fee every time you handle supplies for us? And the rep said, I had no idea you were being charged that. I'll get them all reversed. And they got a check for over $1,000. Now, that might not be a lot of money to you, but for that little country practice, it was a lot of money that they could spend on something else, instead of handling fees that the rep wasn't even aware was being charged. So, folks, look at your systems to see what is working and not working. I told you about my notification on recall. Many times the recall system is not working. We used to send out postcards. You know those days, and some of us still send out postcards or put them in an envelope, send out notices. A lot of people have gone electronic, sending out texts and all this stuff. Well, let me tell you, go back to your office and check your messages. Make sure you create a dummy person in your practice or have messages sent to one of you so you can see what the patients are seeing. I went into one office and the recall system had completely tanked. It had tanked. And I said, how are you notifying? She said, we have a company we contracted with, and they send out a message, a printed message goes to the patient. It's in a little folded, perforated card kind of thing, and it goes to the patient. Have you seen that card? Have you seen it? She said, oh, a lady walked in here the other day with one. I've got one sitting at the front desk. I said, let's look at it together to see why are people not positively responding, because that's a marketing message that's going out by this company you contracted with. You know why they didn't respond? The font on the card was 7-point. That's like the font that's on those medications that will kill you. And the warnings are written in a 7-point, maybe 5-point font. The fonts you can't read, can't see. The message about what they were, they didn't even hardly know who this was from. But when this patient finally figured it out, she came in and said, I'm here, but I wouldn't be here if it was left up to this card. So we got on the phone and called the company and asked them, how do we change the font? How do we make sure people can read the messages we're sending? Because this was a practice treating adults. And I don't know how many of you carry magnifying glasses, but a lot of people don't. And we asked them, how do we change the size of the font? They said, it's a system problem, you can't change it. I said, well, great, you can change it then for us. We haven't figured out how to do it yet. That was the message they got. And so I had to say, so I guess you're probably going to figure out they're not going to be able to use your service until you do, because their recall system is tanked because the messages patients are receiving can hardly be read. They don't know what's going on. So I guess they can't use your service until you figure out what's going on with your system. Oh, let me tell you about working a recall system. Barb's my favorite. Oh, my goodness, Barb. She was from Chicago. I met Barb when the doctor told me Barb's my hygienist. I hate her. I said, what's the hate? He said, well, I bought this practice. The doctor passed away. I bought the practice from the estate. He said, I inherited the staff. I felt I needed to keep Barb because she's been here for a number of years. Patients love Barb, but I hate Barb. I said, what's to hate? He said, she talks too much. Well, I don't have a problem with that. He said, she talks too much. We just can't seem to shut her up. She just talks too much. I said, what do you mean she talks too much? He said, she just talks. In fact, she goes late on every single patient. Average 10, 20 minutes, she's over. And when she's getting up, walking the patient out, they run into the next patient, and they stand there, the three of them, and talk. And it's just like this little community, and they're all up there talking, driving me crazy, and she runs behind, always works through lunch. We're always here late. The patients have to wait. She said she's totally booked, though, so I feel like I need to keep her, although I hate her. So why don't you talk to her about that? So I went and met Barb. I said, Barb, did you know the doctor hates you? She said, you think? She said, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? I said, well, I was just wondering if you knew. I said, but Barb, you're pivotal in this practice. I mean, you're a key point of contact. You have influence on these patients. You're booked up. I looked at your schedule. You're totally booked up. You pre-appoint these patients. They schedule. They keep their appointment. They're afraid to change their appointment, afraid they won't get to see you. I said, I mean, you're pivotal to this practice. We want to fix this because, Barb, you know, the doctor needs you, and these patients need him, but they don't know him yet. They know you. He's got holes in his schedule. He hired me to do a marketing program for him to make the phone ring to get new patients, but when I look at the records on the computer, he's got plenty here. They're coming to see you. So, Barb, let me ask you, do you have any patients that come to see you that need to see him? For example, did the other doctor, before he passed away, did he recommend treatment that patients didn't do? How many of you have patients like that? Patients have treatment recommendations that never gets done, but they come back for hygiene, you know, for 16 years. They're coming faithful every 6 months, you know, for hygiene. You have patients like that? Oh, yeah, well, that was Barb. I said, Barb, do you have patients like that? They come back and get hygiene done, but they need the, you know, they need the crown and bridge. They need all the other treatment. They need stuff. She said, every day. I said, how many every day? She said, minimum 2 and sometimes 4. I said, okay, Barb. Doctor needs you, but right now he hates you. So we need to figure out how to bring back some love. You know, how can we get him to love you? What if you're the marketing plan? What if you're the one who moves patients from hygiene into the doctor's schedule so he doesn't have to spend thousands of dollars on external marketing? Instead, you're the marketing plan. You move people into his schedule because he's got empty chairs and holes in his schedule. She said, how would I do that exactly? I said, the last 10 minutes of that wonderful time you spend talking to patients, because I understand you do talk to patients a lot. The last 10 minutes, let's focus on moving them. What are you concerned about? My message is, since many of you haven't heard me speak, I have a process of communication with patients. It's a 4-point process. I'm concerned, here's why, I recommend, let's go ahead. Very simple to memorize. I'm concerned, here's why, I recommend, let's go ahead. I'm concerned, here's why, I recommend, let's go ahead. I'm concerned to see this. I'm concerned if we don't get that appointment now, we won't find priority time for you then. Let's go ahead and reserve an appointment for you. You know, I'm concerned, here's why. You know, if we don't get it now, we won't get it then. It's not going to be available. We'll be totally booked up. So let's go ahead and do it now. I'm concerned, here's why, I recommend. Let's get it while we wait on the doctor. Let's do this while we're waiting. You know, let's go ahead before you leave. Let's go ahead while you're back here. Let's go ahead and reserve an appointment. I'm concerned, here's why, I recommend, let's go ahead. Simple message, isn't it? I said, Barb, in the last 10 minutes, tell patients, I'm concerned. You know, you've been coming here for the last 16 years. I've been seeing you faithfully, and you still need to do something about this. And now when I look at it, I'm concerned. I'm going to ask the doctor to look at it and notice what, you know, are you at a critical point? Something needs to be changed now. I'm concerned. Here's why. You know, here are the changes that I'm seeing. Here's what I'm noticing. You can see on the images. This is what I'm seeing, too. And I'm concerned you're going to have a toothache over the weekend. I recommend that when the doctor comes in, you know, we talk to the doctor about this and make some decisions now. Let's go ahead and we'll finish this up. He's on his way, and when he gets in here, I may want to move you over to his treatment area to really do a more thorough evaluation to establish records for you since he is now the treating doctor. You know, no additional fee for that. I'm just concerned, and here's why. I recommend, let's go ahead. Very, very simple process. I went back 2 months later, and Barb was still there. I was shocked because the doctor hated her, you know. Sometimes doctors get rid of people they hate because they don't know how to train them, don't know how to engage them, don't know how to communicate with them, don't know how to lead them. They just get mad and don't do anything. And that's because many times doctors haven't had any training in that area of leadership and communication. That's why they hire me. And so I went back, and Barb was still there. I was thrilled to see Barb. I said, Barb, did you keep up with your schedules? I asked Barb to keep up with her schedules and to actually note how many she had moved from her hygiene room into the doctor's room into treatment. she produced schedules. Now, this is just a mock-up of a schedule, but she produced schedules where she had her column, you know, her patients in her chair, and she had these bright highlighter arrows that she produced, these big arrows over to the doctor's column when she would move someone into his schedule. And she had 2 months of these, 40 days a month, so 80 days of schedules where she had moved at least 2 patients every single day into the doctor's schedule. Many days she had 4. But think about the numbers. What is the value of a patient in your practice? According to the insurance companies, they're worth about $1,000 a year, right? Some areas are $1,500. According to insurance companies that allow, you know, a maximum amount of coverage, the value of a patient is $1,000. What's the value of a patient in your practice? Significantly depends on whether you're providing insurance-based care or quality care. I spoke for the ADA for a women's conference, and the president of the ADA at the time was a woman, and I asked her, I said, you know, I called the ADA and asked about the utilization of dental services. The last numbers I could get were from 2016. I said, I asked them about the utilization of dental services. For those who receive care, how much dentistry are people getting done? And the person on the other end of the phone told me, based on our stats, the average utilization of dental services is $500 for patients receiving care, $500 per year. In 2006, it was $755.88 in 2006. So it's going down, and it's like, what? Are you kidding me? I screamed over the phone. 500? I mean, what are they getting done? And I figured it out. They're just doing hygiene. Hygiene, hygiene, hygiene. 2 hygiene visits, $500 is all they're getting done. They're not even using the max on the insurance if they have insurance, but that was the average. What if the average utilization was $1,000 and sweet little Barb was able to move patients into treatment from hygiene, and the average value was $1,000, 80 days, 2 months, 20 days a month, 2 months, 2 patients a day. That would be you know, a lot of patients. If the average value was $1,000 each, that'd be $80,000 that Barb brought in. I had to go back to the doctor, show him the schedules, and I said, do you hate Barb now? Because if you do, I got plenty of doctors who would like to hire her. You know, get over it. She's going to talk. And with training, with education, she can talk about the right things. But she's got a relationship with these patients that marketing cannot buy. You know, we've got to figure out how to make this happen. I will watch, since we've got hygienists significantly here, I will watch hygienists leave a practice and patients follow the hygienist, not stay with the doctor. So I start asking what's going on. The hygienist is a pivotal point. That's the point of access. She's the hygienist, he or she, is a lifeline for the patient, keeping the patient in the practice. That doesn't mean the patient is doing any treatment beyond hygiene. So evaluate that in your office. What are your patients doing? Are they coming back just for hygiene and not doing the treatment that you also recommend besides that? Barb, don't hate her. The next point, and it is 10:15, we'll get to when we come back from a break. Have you enjoyed the morning? Yay! Well, we've got a lot more to give you, a lot more. So enjoy the break. We'll be back here in 30 minutes, all right? 30 minutes? 30 minutes.